All right, welcome to Greta Van Susteren, The Record. I am Katrina Szish in for Greta Van Susteren. Great to have you with us tonight. Well, President Donald Trump is not letting an assassination attempt stop him. Today, the president spoke at the same site where a shooter stormed the White House Correspondents' dinner. And we'll have on that in just a moment. Goes away today. Another billionaire appeared for questioning on Jeffrey Epstein, but there was drama. And we have some good news for Americans. Despite the Iran deal remaining shaky, oil prices are going down. And speaking of Iran, there is controversy involving the country's World Cup team in America. The Islamic nation faces a problem in a very liberal city. As I mentioned, I'm Katrina Szish in for Greta Van Susteren. This is The Record. Today, President Donald Trump addressed the Road to the Majority Faith and Freedom Coalition at the Washington Hilton Hotel. Now, this was the first time the president has been back to the hotel since a gunman was stopped outside the ballroom back in April at the White House Correspondents' dinner. White House correspondent Mike Carter has the very latest. Mike.
Yeah, Katrina, and just moments ago, we heard from President Trump in the Oval Office receiving a report from the Religious Liberty Commission. This was a commission created last year under the Department of Justice, seeking to go after cases, look after cases where American civil rights and religious rights have been violated. Today, the commission's commissioner, Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, saying just moments ago that we know what communists do around the world. They remove God, they close the churches, they punish the believers. So there's a lot in that report. We don't have the details as of yet. But as you mentioned earlier today, the president speaking at the Faith and Freedom Conference here in Washington at the same D.C. Hilton where he was nearly shot at a couple months ago during the White House Correspondents' dinner. Today, President Trump giving remarks about the recent wave of Democratic socialists that have won in primary contests around the country, especially in New York. President saying today he would make for the greatest communist in history. The only problem is communism simply doesn't work.
They want to resume the transgender mutilation of our children. They want to restart the war on Christians and churches. And as you saw with the communists elected in New York City recently, they're communists, they're not social democrats. They want to completely destroy the traditional American way of life. Communism is very easy to sell. I'll be honest. I think I'd be the greatest communist in history. Everybody gets free food. Everything is free from this point forward. Everyone's going to vote for me. The problem is, after 2 or 3 years, the country is a disaster area.
Well, earlier this month, Katrina, after Iran struck a Kuwait airport, killing one person, injuring dozens more people, I asked President Trump what he thinks the word ceasefire means. Here's what he said.
How do you define ceasefire?
Pretty much the way it is. It's a different part of the world. You know, I'd say in that part of the world, ceasefire is when you're shooting in a more moderate manner.
Well, today, a day after Iranian drone strikes hit a cargo ship in the Strait of Hormuz, the president saying the Islamic Republic of Iran shot at least 4 one-way attack drones at ships transversing the Strait of Hormuz. One of the drones solidly hit the upper deck of a large and very expensive cargo-carrying ship. Damage was done, but the ship was able to proceed on its way. We knocked down 3 other drones. Obviously, this is a foolish violation of our ceasefire agreement. Well, more on Iran during a Rose Garden ceremony last night to American farmers. The president saying the U.S. is still negotiating from a position of pure strength. Trump reiterating that under his agreement with Iran, unfrozen assets will be used to purchase American agricultural products. But Iran's parliament speaker, one of the lead negotiators with the U.S., saying America falsely claims our unfrozen assets will buy their agriculture. Interesting. The only crop we're harvesting is what you planted. Decades of mistrust. It's organic, abundant, and homegrown, but apparently the U.S. only exports GMO soybeans, broken promises, and trash talks. Also today, the president saying numerous European countries have been discussing the imminent implementation of a digital services tax on American companies. Please let this statement serve to represent that any country that imposes such a tax will immediately be met with a 100% tariff on any and all goods sent into the United States of America. And President Trump says that 100% tariff Well, that will be put on countries that violate this agreement, including on trade deals that are already struck or could be struck in the near future. So the president putting out that warning, don't plan to tax digital assets from companies in the U.S. Katrina.
All right, Mike Carter, lots on the president's plate, and we appreciate that. We're going to move on to this. Joining me now to talk about something else that the president has been very focused on, that is the Save America Act. We know that he didn't sign a bipartisan housing bill yesterday. We know that he has delayed renewing FISA, of course, a key spy bill, all based on his focus on the Save America Act for voting. Talking about that with me now, Democratic Connecticut congressional candidate and former mayor of Hartford, Luke Bronin, joins me, as well as former chairman of the South Carolina Republican Party, Katon Dawson. All right, great to have you both here. Obviously a big day, Iran front and center today, but not far behind something the president has been very focused on, of course, that Save America Act, something that we're learning that no matter what side of the aisle many Americans are on, some 80% of them, they are behind this for election integrity. So, Kate, and I am going to start with you here. President Trump pushing House Republicans to unify and to pass that Save America Act. Do you see this happening, and how?
It's doable. The president is handles a lot of things in every 24-hour period. I'm sure the mayor will agree with me on that. He steps on his message a lot of times, and this is aimed at the base of the Republican Party that is fairly well informed about voter ID, even though the rules and everything about voting are different in each state. The president knows that this is a rallying point to his base and a rallying point before the midterms. And every now and then, you know, he's the master at changing the conversation, and this is one of the ways he's going to do that.
Luke, your thoughts on this? Do you think this is something that the Senate and obviously the House, even though they've passed it 3 times, should get on board with, considering how many Americans are behind this, regardless of party?
Americans who know what's actually in this bill are not behind this. Republicans aren't even really behind this. Look, what's happening right now is the president is losing on Iran, putting us in a weaker position than we've ever been. Costs keep going through the roof. Congress finally took action to help address the cost of housing. And Trump's response is to block that bill, to push a bill that even Republicans know is a bad bill. Like, if you're watching this show and your audience makes up, you know, it's similar to the population at large. Half the folks watching this show don't have a passport. If you're a married woman and you changed your name, you would need to have access to not just your birth certificate, your marriage certificate, and then you'd have to go in person to an election official. If you live in a rural area, you're going to have to drive hundreds of miles. If you're serving our country abroad, you're going to find it harder to register. There's nothing about this that actually solves a real problem. It just makes it harder for ordinary American citizens to exercise their right to vote. So the upside down world we're living in right now is that Trump is trying to force Republicans to pass a bill they know is bad, while he's holding up a bill that's actually good to bring down the cost of housing.
I am going to interrupt there, Mayor, and I do want to get back to Katon to share his thoughts to what you said. But I will have to say, I mean, I hear your talking points there, but unfortunately, I believe a lot of those about trying to say it's going to be very difficult for married women to vote and to get what they need to vote. That has been debunked and kind of thrown out, I'll say, months ago. And I know those are the typical talking points against the Save America Act, but at the same time, Americans very concerned about the integrity of our elections overall, and something about that needs to be done. And also, Kate, and I'm going to pass this to you, also a lot of pushback with Republicans on that housing bill that you're celebrating. I know it's a bipartisan bill there, Mayor, but at the same time, there are lots in there saying it only increases bureaucracy. This is from Senator Elizabeth Warren. Obviously, we know very progressive, this bill, and that it actually is not going to help housing affordability overall. So again, I want to be very clear about what the president is and isn't doing here. It's easy to make it sound like he's the bad guy, but I'm not sure, Katon, your thoughts.
Well, I've had this argument over the last 5 years on multiple stations, and the mayor's, just to be frank with you, is just wrong. I mean, I don't know when the last time he went into a federal courthouse or any place like an airport that you have to have an ID. It's insane to think that you can vote without one. I understand the politics of it. To the housing bill, they're going to have to get it right. You're right. When you start increasing the bureaucracy in these things, you start increasing the cost.
Right.
I haven't read the entire bill. It's thick. It's deep. And until they get it right, they're not going to have enough votes to pass it.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, also the Wall Street Journal today also just saying this bill is not that great. There's a lot of other stuff that's packed in there. So again, as you said, very thick, lots to read. I appreciate the differing opinions as always. Luke Bronin, Katon Dawson, thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
All right, and coming up, outrage in Florida. A mother somehow cleared in the drowning of her 1-year-old daughter. For the case, it's not over yet. Plus, a former Trump ally turned foe gets his day in court. John Bolton is fined millions. But how much time could he serve behind bars? We're going to tell you about it when the record continues. Stay right there.
A Social Security update. Millions collect Social Security, but 70% of Americans don't get their full benefits. Now, a new report shows how to boost your Social Security by as much as $188,000. Author Matthew Allen reveals 5 key strategies in a new report. Newsmax calls it the best guide for retirees. Everyone needs this free Social Security report. Act today to get your full benefits.
Nobody knows Corvettes like McMulkin Chevrolet, the world's largest Corvette dealer for 5 consecutive years. Set apart by its name alone, Corvette delivers a legacy of American craftsmanship, and a vehicle that sets the bar for performance cars deserves a buying experience that beats it. With hundreds of Corvettes in stock and ready for immediate delivery nationwide, it's no wonder Corvette enthusiasts from across the USA keep coming back to McMulkin Chevrolet.
This is a paid advertisement for legal services. If you or a loved one has mesothelioma or any other asbestos-related cancer, call now. Asbestos manufacturers sold deadly asbestos materials to thousands of companies, putting workers at risk. An estimated $30 billion in court-ordered trusts have been set aside to pay out claims to asbestos victims. You may be entitled to a portion of these funds and receive compensation without filing a lawsuit or ever going to court. For your free legal consultation, call 1-800-306-1979. That's 1-800-306-1979.
I wish I loved my smile.
I wish I could get implants.
I wish money wasn't so tight.
I wish I can justify the cost.
I wish my insurance could save me more on dental implants.
See what it can do at ClearChoice. Show us your insurance card and save $5,000 on fixed full double arch implants. That's insurance assurance on a smile that's built for life. Schedule your free consultation today.
It's official. He has pleaded guilty. Today, former Trump National Security Advisor John Bolton appeared in federal court. Now, he is accused of illegally retaining sensitive government information. Bolton served as a Trump advisor in the president's first term, but then Bolton turned into a Trump foe and went on to slam the president in a book that he authored about his time in the White House. Federal criminal defense attorney Ronald Chapman joins me, along with Christina Bobb, an attorney at Judicial Watch and author of the book Defiant: Inside the Mar-a-Lago Raid and the Left's Ongoing Lawfare. All right, welcome to both of you here. Interesting developments, interesting story. Let's get into it. All right, Ronald, I'm going to start with you. Of course, as we mentioned, at the center of this case, John Bolton's book. Now, prosecutors say that Bolton held on to information from his time in the government so he could write said book. And also, here is what U.S. Attorney Kelly Hayes said earlier about that information. Watch.
As Mr. Bolton admitted, he shared more than 1,000 pages of information about his day-to-day activities as the National Security Advisor, including information related to the national defense, with 2 individuals who neither had the security clearances nor the need to know that information.
All right, Ronald, how serious is this for John Bolton?
Well, I appreciate the DOJ's efforts here, but this is not much of a deterrent. He pled guilty to 1 count of retaining classified information,
out of
not
18
transmitting
counts total,
the classified.
Right?
Yeah,
also,
18 counts charged. And the big kicker would be if you prosecuted him for transmitting, that means he shared classified information with somebody who wasn't supposed to receive it. This message that this plea is giving off is anybody inside the government with classified information, you've got about a 5-year cap on your punishment if you decide to share secrets with Iran. And remember, John Bolton's email was hacked by Iran. He didn't come forward with it quick enough. And all of that stuff that was retained for his book was potentially exposed to our worst enemy. So I appreciate the DOJ's efforts here, but soft on this one, honestly.
Christina, what do you think about that? Because also, despite pleading guilty, Bolton has said his conduct was legal, and he also said the Justice Department's investigation is an effort to intimidate Trump's opponents. Obviously, you wrote the book on the ongoing lawfare, particular to the Mar-a-Lago raid. Do you think this is another case of lawfare?
Well, he's pled guilty, so no, because he agrees to what the DOJ charged him with. I agree that it is soft for what he actually did. However, because it is political in nature, the DOJ is up against a clock. They're up against the election clock, whether it's the midterms or, quite frankly, the presidential election. In criminal cases, I have been a criminal defendant for 2.5 years, and they have not even established probable cause in my case. So these cases can take a very long time. And so as much as I would love to see a heavier punishment, I agree with that assessment. Take the win and move on, because they could have run out of time. There's a lot of other things that could have gone wrong with this. So the fact that they got the win, I'll take it.
All right, so you both view it as a win, but you both think this was maybe not enough, too soft, as you said. And we know Ronald Bolton will be sentenced in October. I think I'm hearing about 5 years. Do you think he actually will serve any time in prison?
No, I honestly don't think he will. He's got a 5-year cap according to the plea agreement. That's 60 months. Usually in the federal system, we talk in terms of months. But when he gets before the judge, he's going to flex his credentials and his years of government service, as well as this being the first offense. And remember, the judge is only going to treat this as a case very similar to what Joe Biden did, very similar to what Donald Trump was accused of doing, as just a retaining classified information case. The judge will not treat it as a transmitting case, which means probation time all the way for John Bolton. That's my prediction on this one.
Interesting. And of course, it's hard not to think about Hillary Clinton and those emails on her server that contain classified information, but we're not going to get into that. That's a conversation for another time. Christina Bobb, Ronald Chapman, thank you. Have great weekends.
Thank you.
All right, now to Florida, where we're following a disturbing case involving the drowning of a toddler. The child's own mother was accused in her daughter's death, but now there's been a shocking ruling. Senior correspondent John Huddy has been following this story from Florida. John, what can you tell us?
Yeah, well, Katrina, this has shocked, obviously, a lot of people. Florida Attorney General James Othmeyer is clearly not happy that Miami-Dade court judge Miguel de Leo acquitted the woman of, as you mentioned, a number of crimes and also drowning her little daughter. Now, the 45-year-old Precious Bland waived her right to a jury trial and instead had a bench trial where Judge De La O acquitted her of drowning her 15-month-old daughter by reason of insanity. Now, Bland's attorney argued she suffered a psychotic episode triggered by COVID-19, if you can believe this, and was experiencing hallucinations with voices telling her to baptize family members who were also infected with COVID-19. Well, according to prosecutors, on the night of August 23rd, 2021, Bland allegedly told her family that, quote, Jesus Christ is coming and COVID is going to kill us all. She then insisted that everyone be baptized in the bathtub holding her 15-month-old daughter underwater until she became unconscious and ultimately died. When Bland's husband and her other 16-year-old daughter tried to intervene and stop her, Bland then grabbed a knife and started stabbing them and tried to kill herself as well. This, according to prosecutors and the arrest record and police body cam footage, and you're seeing some of that right there. Now, Tuesday, Judge De La O ruled that Bland did not understand the nature or consequences of her actions, but Florida AG James Othmeyer posted this on X, writing that this was a bench trial. It's time to impeach this judge. My office will be drafting articles of impeachment, and we look forward to working with all legislators who will support. Here's what Bland's attorney, though, and the woman had to say after the verdict.
Having done the research, because, there's so much that we don't know about COVID. And this was, one of the first cases in the country to go to trial on COVID being in the defense to murder.
Do you trust yourself around your children? Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely, without a doubt. And I'm sure that my family is very vigilant now as well. It's not something that, they would take lightly.
Yeah, well, obviously people are not taking this lightly, and they are disturbed and shocked by this verdict. Judge Miguel De La O, as I mentioned, has been on the bench since 2012. He presides over the criminal and appellate divisions in Miami, and his current term runs through January 7th, 2031. But obviously, A.G. Othmeyer wants to change that, so expect to hear about a lot more with this case coming up in the coming weeks. Katrina.
And coming up, the World Cup finds itself in some off-the-field drama. That's when the record continues. Stay there.
The agency is cleaning house.
This is a mole hunt.
Trust no one. Not even me. Or you asked to look into me.
And if I was?
This isn't a fishing trip. This is a manhunt, killer capture. You're hunting a predator. Miss the kill shot. It comes for you.
Kevin Sorbo here, and I have an important message to share. The government needs more money, your money. If you owe the IRS back taxes, they can garnish your wages and levy your bank accounts. They can even seize your retirement or take your home. Don't let the IRS target you. Call the professionals at Tax Network USA. Their tax lawyers and enrolled agents are experts in powerful programs that may even help you eliminate your tax debt.
Call for a free consultation or visit tnusa.com.
Most people call leaf filter when their gutters are clogged and they notice one of the many issues that can bring. You can get ahead of costly damage by protecting your home's gutters today.
Schedule your free inspection today. Call 833-LEAF-FILTER or visit leaffilter.com.
As an athlete, I think I just always understood sleep as part of the performance equation. It was physical recovery. Especially as a mom, I think sleep has taken on an entirely new meaning for me. It's mental recovery, it's sanity, it's how I show up not just for my daughter, but for my work, even myself. And I think I used to think sleep was something you pushed through. And now I really think of it as something you protect.
Sattva, unlock the superpower of restorative sleep.
My dad has never been in better shape. He had a stroke and passed away. He had a life insurance policy. Ethos.com. In 10 minutes, you can be covered with life insurance.
Check your price today at ethos.com.
Hello, everyone. It's President Donald J. Trump, and it's Trump time. Check out this red beauty. It's one of my new watches. Wear it proudly on your wrist, and everyone will know exactly what it's for, who it represents. It's really going to be something special. It's for your favorite president. Get your watch today at gettrumpwatches.com. These make a great gift. It's Trump time.
Thanks to Jointivia, I'm back in the swing of things. Wait, $70 for a refill?
You gotta try Single Care. Just look up your prescription, show the coupon at the pharmacy, and save.
See why more people are saving with Single Care.
Students today face unique challenges. Adolescence can be confusing, complicated, and scary, with lots of change, a ton of pressure, and a complex world around us. When it comes to improving youth mental health, we need a comprehensive solution, and students need to be a part of the conversation. If we don't get this right, we'll miss a critical opportunity to make real change for generations to come. Get involved today at empowerourfuturecoalition.com.
Stop trusting foreign antivirus to defeat foreign-made ransomware. American-made PCmatic protects your family, your home, and your workplace. Go to PCmatic.com. Built by Americans to protect America.
Welcome back to The Record. I'm Katrina Szish in for Greta Van Susteren. Well, tonight it's a clash of cultures at the FIFA World Cup match in Seattle. Iran and Egypt will face off, but it's what's happening off the field that's making headlines. The game is coinciding with pride events in the city, but the only problem? Well, Iran and Egypt soccer federations want nothing to do with rainbow symbols. Iran is one of the 6 countries in the world that formally imposes the death penalty for same-sex relations. Egypt has criminalized same-sex relations between men, but FIFA will not ban rainbow flags at this game, or they're saying any other. Iran expert, author of Unveiled Inside Iran's Woman, Life, Freedom Revolt, and Israel's outgoing international spokesperson to the United Nations, Jonathan Harounoff, joins me now. Jonathan, thanks so much for joining me here. A very interesting here. We hear the FIFA president saying, oh, this is not designated a pride match. There's no such thing, trying to backpedal. But we know for months this has been called the pride match of the World Cup. Lots of irony to this match tonight. So what is the sentiment inside Iran about it?
Well, it's great to be with you, Katrina. Thanks for having me on. Lots of irony indeed. And what's interesting is this match, this weekend, has long been designated as the Pride weekend, even before the game, even before Seattle knew who exactly was going to play in this weekend. So I guess it is a kind of irony. But what you're seeing is the Islamic Republic and its footballing and sporting authorities trying to control FIFA. And unfortunately, you're seeing some statements by FIFA in an attempt to almost acquiesce to the Islamic Republic, to backpedal, to try and control the agenda. We actually saw similar behavior in 2022 when the World Cup was hosted in Qatar, and we saw the Islamic Republic work together with Qatari authorities to try and also ban anti-government Iranian journalists from covering the event, and to ban all kinds of other symbolic and cultural things around the World Cup. So this isn't a surprise.
Why so much kowtowing to Iran, do you think?
I don't know. It's a good question. What we have seen, though, even though there is some suspect behavior, we've also seen the United States, and all credit to them, be firm. They're in a state of relative conflict with the Islamic Republic, which is why they've imposed these travel restrictions on the team. And the thing that I find quite disturbing is that you're seeing certain commentators, a very prominent one from where I was born and raised in London, his name's Gary Lineker, who has come out really very forcefully against the United States in support of the Islamic Republic for imposing these travel bans. This is the same individual, Gary Lineker, who had to delete a very controversial Instagram tweet about how Zionism is bad, and it included images of rats, which have long been images of anti-Semitic stereotypes and tropes. So it's a very good question. I wish I had a satisfying answer for you.
Well, again, I think what we are learning, especially with the Islamic Republic, is that there is a lot that we just don't understand why they do what they do. But again, very interesting how it is playing out in all ways tonight, on and off the soccer field. All right, Jonathan Harounoff, thank you.
Thank you.
Where does the U.S. ceasefire agreement stand with Iran?
They shot a drone yesterday at a big ship going into the Harounoff Strait. They shot 4 of them. We knocked down 3 of them. One of them, I guess we didn't miss it. Nobody saw it coming. And it hit a ship and did some damage. But you can't do that stuff. I don't like the fact that they took a shot yesterday, actually 4. We knocked down 3 at a ship. Not an Allied ship, but a ship, a very expensive ship. And it was fine, but it took a little beating. They shouldn't be doing that, so you'll find out.
Former F-15 fighter pilot Ryan Bodenheimer and former Navy Top Gun fighter pilot Matthew Whiz Buckley join me now. Interesting here. Again, we've been hearing so much. I know I've talked to both of you about this many, many times. Where do things stand? Can we trust Iran? Can we not trust Iran? It seems to me that, Ryan, that the general assessment is we can't trust Iran, but we're still at least trying to get somewhere. Kind of explain the rationale behind that, the why.
Yeah, it's a great question. Hey, Katrina. Hey, Wiz. Good to see you guys as always. Well, I actually looked this up today. So Iran stands to gain $90 billion a year. And that's a report from JP Morgan and Chase if they're able to execute tolls on shipping through the Strait of Hormuz. So even with all the military pressure, if you think about these Iranian generals, especially from the IRGC Navy, they're mafia bosses. And so $90 billion a year, even if there's some pragmatists in Tehran that want to make a deal, think about the power that these IRGC generals have and the incentive they have to keep wreaking havoc to try to get some sort of a deal. Because again, they're not just negotiating with the United States. Right now, they're negotiating with Oman as well to see who actually controls the strait. And Iran obviously wants to get that $90 billion. Even if they're going to negotiate out of one side of their mouth, they're still going to try to get that $90 billion.
Wiz, it does come down to money, a lot of money. And of course, we know that the vice president had said a lot of this money would be kind of monitored by the United States so the country couldn't use it to rebuild its nuclear program. But a lot of the money, obviously, it will be their own, especially from their oil, as Ryan was talking about. And that is simply theirs. Do you feel, based on your experience, everything you've read, everything you've listened to, everything you know behind the scenes, do you think this is a win for President Trump and for the United States? Why or why not?
Not right now, Katrina. We have to finish this. I'm going to age myself a little bit, but I was a teenager 47 years ago when they started this war, and they've killed thousands of U.S. Servicemen and women since, from Khobar Towers to the Beirut barracks bombing. Their handprints are all over this stuff. George Bush took a lot of grief for not, quote, connecting the dots before 9/11, for not knowing folks were going to fly airliners into buildings as small nukes. Now we have a radical Islamic regime saying, hey, we want nukes, and when we get them, not if, we're going to use them to wipe you all off the face of the planet. I'm also a student of military history. There were Japanese soldiers fighting in the Pacific Islands because they believed that the emperor, he wouldn't have surrendered. Let's keep fighting. You're going to have the same type of folks in here. There are some radical Islamic folks, from the generals to clerics, who are going to fight to the bitter end. These aren't Manhattan real estate developers he's negotiating with. These are folks that only understand force, sadly.
And Ryan, again, and we've discussed that President Trump knows that these, they're not so much about the treaties. They're really more about who has the biggest stick, who has the power. And obviously, President Trump has been clear that the United States does, but he has still held off from attacking them further militarily. Do you believe, even when he said today that they violated the ceasefire based on what they're doing in the Strait of Hormuz, what they continue to do, do you see this, I will say, going to more of a military attack again and off of the ceasefire path?
Yeah, so a little bit different perspective, I think, from Wiz. I do think we are at a bit of a win, and I'll tell you why. And it looks different than most wars have looked like, because the thing that I think is a huge win is we're not involved in some land campaign in Iran right now. We don't have boots on the ground. We have special forces in the region. We have fighter jets. We have strategic surgical capability. And when you're negotiating with terrorists, we might be looking at the new way to fight these wars. And there's a strategy called retrenchment strategy, where you basically do reciprocal hits, right? So, okay, these drone operators are going to launch these drones at these commercial ships. Cool. So what we might see, just hypothetically, are some of these operation towers, some of these IRGC Navy Special Forces units might go bye-bye here in the next 48 hours. And then we say, okay, do you want to negotiate now? Because again, do we want to be in a land war, or do we want to be strategic, do quick strikes, come back and see if they'll negotiate until we can get somebody who's a bit of a pragmatist? But I think this is going to look different. But at the end of the day, the president wants to win the midterms. We got to get gas prices down, even though the average American, I think, is paying only an extra $70 a month extra for the gas prices. It's not nothing, but it's not massive at the same time, right? So I get the strategy of the administration, but it's going to look a little bit different than a quick, easy win that I think everybody wants.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think it's everybody wants an unequivocal, okay, we've dominated, we've won, we got everything that we wanted, but also a lot of the strategy, as you pointed out, Ryan, also is, okay, kind of mowing the lawn, so to speak. So actually Iran is at least set back for as long as possible before they start to rebuild. And again, we'll see how it all plays out. Ryan Bodenheimer with Buckley. Have a great weekend. Thanks.
Good to see you guys. Katrina.
All right, well, the death toll in Venezuela is rising. More than 900 people are dead after two major earthquakes earlier this week. Now, we're looking at some aerial footage of the damage in the northern part of the country. A 7.2 magnitude earthquake struck Wednesday night, and just 1 minute later, a 7.5 magnitude tremor struck. Hundreds of buildings were damaged. Thousands were left homeless. Rescue operations are underway to find anyone trapped in the rubble. Dramatic footage here shows a woman being pulled from the rubble yesterday. She was conscious. She says when the earthquake started, she clung to the door frame so tightly that she broke her finger, and she says that all of the floors collapsed around her. Yesterday, Greta spoke with Venezuela's opposition leader, Maria Corina Machado, about recovery operations. Watch.
There are areas that are currently not being taken care of. A lot of people are trapped under rubble. And this is a moment in which we desperately need international aid.
Well, that aid already arriving, and the U.S. is sending relief while also sending search and rescue teams. About 50,000 people are reportedly still unaccounted for. And coming up, drama on Capitol Hill over, guess who? Jeffrey Epstein. It continues. A witness shows up but then refuses to talk. That when the record continues.
In America, we believe in hard work, family, and taking care of our own. That's why SafeStep walk-in tubs are proudly designed, built, and assembled in the USA, in the heart of Tennessee, by more than 300 hardworking Americans.
My name is Michelle Johnson. Lamination is where we put the fiberglass, resin, and gel coat on the actual product.
Skilled craft professionals, building every tub with precision, care, and pride. With a low step-in design, built-in safety features, and soothing therapeutic jets, SafeStep helps you stay comfortable, confident, and in control.
My name's Angela Peters. We make sure everything is as perfect as it can be.
When you choose SafeStep, you're not just investing in your home, you're supporting American families and American jobs. Call now for your free in-home consultation and ask about our special offer. SafeStep walk-in tubs, made in Tennessee, made for you.
Where's Mom?
She's not feeling well.
Bipolar depression made me feel like I was missing out. Caplyta can help let in the light. Unlike some medications that only treat bipolar 1, Caplyta is proven to deliver significant relief from symptoms of bipolar 1 and 2 depression. Weight gain and movement disorders were not common.
Elderly dementia patients have increased risk of death or stroke. Caplyta is not approved for dementia-related psychosis. Call your doctor about new or sudden mood changes, behaviors, or suicidal thoughts right away. Antidepressants may increase these risks. Report fever, confusion, stiff muscles, which may be life-threatening, or uncontrolled muscle movements, which may be permanent. High cholesterol and weight gain may occur, as can high blood sugar, which may be fatal. Common side effects are sleepiness, dizziness, nausea, dry mouth, feeling tired, and diarrhea. These aren't all the side effects.
Ask your doctor about Caplyta.
My heart has experienced life-changing wins, losses, and countless miles. To keep living at my speed, I trust Cunol CoQ10. CoQ10 is the #1 cardiologist-recommended supplement for heart health. Cunol, the brand I trust.
Where's the admission desk at your hospital? You may need it sooner than you think. It's the middle of the night and you, your spouse, or your child is sick, high fever, can't keep anything down, and getting worse. Now you're waiting in the ER. And everyone gets seen before you. And when I finally see you and order prescriptions, you still have to wait for your pharmacy to open and hope they have what I prescribed. This is the medical emergency kit. It's stocked with essential medications, including amoxicillin, generic Z-Pak, and ivermectin. Now you have the right medications when you need them. And it's why I and so many of my colleagues have medical emergency kits. It's like having an urgent care and pharmacy in your home. Just fill out a brief online medical intake and your kit, prescribed by a licensed provider, is shipped to your door. Here's how to order.
Order your kit now and save $45. Visit urgentcarekit.com/news. That's urgentcarekit.com/news.
Today, billionaire ex-Apollo CEO Leon Black arrived on Capitol Hill to testify behind closed doors in front of the House Oversight Committee on his ties to Jeffrey Epstein. But shortly after that, Oversight Chairman James Comer said Black refused to answer questions and is now being subpoenaed. Harvard Law School Professor Emeritus Alan Dershowitz joins me now. Professor, always great to have you here. And I know that you've spoken about this topic ad nauseum with Greta, also with me and Bob Brooks on American Agenda. Very interesting development, at least to me. Were you surprised? How do you see this playing out for him? Do you think he made the right move today?
Well, first of all, I don't need a subpoena. I volunteered to testify.
Yes, you did.
About everything. But one of the things that I'm going to testify about is the McCarthyism that's at play here. Let me read you from a statement issued by Congress, and it talks about prominent names, and it says Leon Black, and it has blank, blank, cross out the name, blank, blank, crossed out the name, and then it accuses Black of doing various things, but the names of the accusers are not given. How do you possibly respond to anonymous accusations. That's un-American. That's against the Constitution. That's against civil liberties. If anybody accuses you, you have to get their names. Among the other people who are in the list, blank stated that she gave Dershowitz a massage on Epstein's plane, not a minor. In other words, it's an adult, a lying, perjuring adult. I never was on a plane getting a massage. It's a totally false story. All you have to do is give me the name of the adult woman. I will prove through looking at the manifest of the airplane that I was never on an airplane with her. And then she should go to jail for perjury. But what's happening is we're seeing the committee protecting these so-called survivors, so-called victims. There are real survivors. There are real victims, minors who really, but these adults who make up stories in order to get money, their names shouldn't be kept secret. That's what happened during McCarthyism. And we're ashamed of that. And we will 10 years from now be ashamed at the Epstein McCarthyism.
Professor, how do you? But I've spoken to Gloria Allred. Obviously, you know her well. Who has represented many of.
And she's terrific. She's a very, very able woman. Yeah.
But she's represented a lot of the survivors, and I've talked to her about this. Where the survivors, as you said, obviously they're legitimate survivors who were truly victims of this. That they are concerned about their names not being redacted for obvious reasons. So my question to you is, how does one determine in going into these hearings whether the names that are blacked out or crossed out actually are those of victims or of false accusers?
Very simple. First, you simply redact the names of any minors, anybody who is under 18. But anybody who is over 18, who's accusing somebody, has voluntarily put herself in the public light. And you can't accuse people without giving your name. You can't accuse people without subjecting yourself to cross-examination. Now you say for obvious reasons. The obvious reason is that some of them are lying. Some of their lawyers put them up to it. Some of them are telling the truth. But in our system of justice, we can't assume that all accusers are telling the truth. All women do not tell the truth, and all men do not lie. Many women tell the truth. Many men tell the truth. That's why we have a system. Congress can't overcome that system by saying, well, this is an adult, but we're not going to give you her name. We're going to let her make an accusation. We're not going to let you disprove it.
Professor Dershowitz, what you're saying is accurate, and it reminds me a lot of also what we saw happen during the Me Too movement. It became a movement as opposed to something that was necessarily based on honesty, and we saw a lot of people unfairly and falsely accused. And Mr. Dershowitz, we have to go now, but again, always love your thoughts on this topic, and we do look forward to you testimony. Thank you.
Start the celebration this holiday with Blackstone fun and flavor that brings everyone together. Because all across the nation, Blackstone is the way America cooks outdoors. With an enormous variety for your whole neighborhood. Giving you the freedom to cook anything, anytime, anywhere. Only on a Blackstone, America's best-selling griddle. Celebrate this holiday with griddles and more at BlackstoneProducts.com or your nearest Blackstone retailer.
Life with ear ringing sounded like a constant train whistle I couldn't escape. Then I started taking lipoflavonoid. With 60 years of clinical experience, it's the #1 doctor-recommended brand for ear ringing, and now I'm finally free. Take back control with lipoflavonoid.
Forget the warm-up. DirecTV got hot. They're on fire with more MLB games than anyone. Welcome to the big leagues, kid.
How old are you?
11.
The name's Hampton. I've come a long way from my Humpty days and have learned a thing or two about crashes and falls. That's why I invest with Willow Wealth. They make it easy to diversify my portfolio with private markets. Plus, portfolios including private markets have outperformed traditional ones for the past 20 years. Not that it's a competition. Diversify your portfolio to help rise above public market volatility and level up your game. Those who know, know. Willow Wealth.
Hi, it's Christina again. I'm here to tell you about an all-new special offer. Jacuzzi bath remodel has a design you'll love at a price you can afford. We're waiving all installation costs and postponing all payments for up to 1 year. And best of all, they can install it in as little as 1 day with no stress and no mess. Take advantage of this special TV offer today.
Go to jacuzzibathremodel.com or call 800-814-7454.
People always ask, why Patriot Gold Group? With over 10,000 clients to date and over $1 billion in transactions, not a single complaint on the Better Business Bureau. Consumer Affairs top rated for 9 years in a row. Over 2,000 5-star reviews. The only company nationwide where you, the client, work directly with an owner. Home of the no fee for life IRA. Gold is up 80% in the last 28 months, 275% since Lehman Brothers collapsed. We are patriots protecting patriots. Give Patriot Gold Group a call at 888-528-4290 before it's too late. Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs' top-rated gold and silver dealer 9 years in a row. Call now, 888-528-4290.
Welcome back to The Record. I'm Katrina Szish in for Greta Van Susteren on this Friday night. Well, with some big news in Texas, the state school board has now voted to require Bible readings in public schools. This comes as a new report alleges that public libraries and publishers are censoring faith from America's history. The study was done by the publisher Brave Books. It analyzed more than 300 books, and what did it find? 0 titles, 0 directly addressing faith. Former Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Professor Emeritus at Johns Hopkins School of Medicine, retired neurosurgeon and author of the new book, Built on Faith, Dr. Ben Carson joins me now. Dr. Carson, always great to see you and great to talk to you. And I will say you are the ultimate multi-hyphenate. And as I have said before, what does Dr. Ben Carson not have some area of expertise on? But this particular issue that we're going to talk about, also tied to your new book, extremely important, I know, to you and so many Americans, the absence, the retelling of American history without our country's focus on faith. Tell me about why that concerns you.
Well, looking at the direction of the country, it should concern everybody. They should be asking, what's happening to our country? Why are we falling apart? Why are we fighting each other so vigorously? Why are we putting forth proposals of things that make absolutely no sense whatsoever? And I think it kind of goes back to our beginnings. What distinguished us from everybody else? Our founding document said that our rights come from our Creator and not from government and can't be taken away by government. That was a radical departure from any other governance structure that ever existed. But what happened? We rose from obscurity to the pinnacle of the world in rapid succession. So think about, are those coincidences? Or was it because of the Judeo-Christian values that guided us along the way? And what we want our children to know is that there's a different story than the one that they're being taught. They're being taught that America is an evil place, that we had slavery, which makes us uniquely evil, that we treated the Indians in a horrible way, that we were unpleasant to foreigners, all kinds of things. They don't go away with a good, warm feeling. And those are not people who are going to become patriotic Americans. So we can't just sit back and complain about it. We have to get in there and join the fight. It was Lenin who said, give me your children to teach for 4 years, and the seeds that I sow will never be uprooted. Well, we need to be in there sowing seeds also and helping them to realize who we are. And I'm not talking about whitewashing anything. We need to teach our children the good, the bad, and the ugly. But there's a heck of a lot more good than there is bad and ugly. And, it's not fair the way the other side presents us.
I think that's an excellent point, Dr. Carson, particularly as we are celebrating America's 250th birthday. Listen, it's important to point out the entire history, as you said, to teach our kids our future of this country, about every single thing that happened to get us to where we are today, again, good and bad, and also to allow those kids to be able to think critically, to make their own decision rather than feeding them a narrative that only gives them a very narrow view of this country. And as you said, mostly negative. Talk a little bit also about the importance of critical thinking. That seems to be something that is being frowned upon, particularly by these more progressive Democrats.
Well, the progressive Democrats are Marxists, basically, which means they want to be the central focus of authority. They don't want any challenges, and they want groupthink. And they despise people who think otherwise. You know, I look at the way they look at black conservatives. They think, you know, that we're horrible people because we don't group think. We don't think the way they do. And therefore, they have all kind of names to call you. But I'm happy to see that there are a lot more young black people who are starting to think for themselves and recognize we have to do what's right for us, for our children, our grandchildren, for our nation, and not you know, follow along with some ideology in order to be accepted. And, you know, the same thing goes for the broader American society. And if you don't know your history, you're very easily led. And, you know, it's alarming sometimes. You talk to some of our young people out on the beach and place, they don't seem to know much of anything about our history and what various things mean. And those are the very ones that fall victim very quickly to the Marxists.
It's easy to be a follower when you really don't have any independent thoughts or ideas. And you can only, I believe, have independent thoughts or ideas if you actually can think for yourself, of course, and if you actually have information to build those own thoughts and ideas. And Dr. Carson, I do want to ask you this, because we hear this so frequently. Okay, well, there's supposed to be separation between church and state. So that's the debate that a lot of, or the argument that a lot of people use to say, well, there shouldn't be faith in schools, there shouldn't be faith in government. And you say what to those people?
I say, do those people realize that our founding document says that our rights come from our Creator? Do they realize that the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag says we are one nation under God? Do they realize that the walls on many courtrooms say in God we trust, and that every coin in their pocket and every bill in their wallet says in God we trust? So what is that? If it's in all those places, but we're not supposed to talk about it, that sounds like schizophrenia to me. That is not a sign of a healthy society.
And as a neurosurgeon, I think you would know exactly what that does look like. All right, Dr. Ben Carson, always great to have you, and hope you are enjoying the countdown to America's 250th birthday, and thanks for all you do. Dr. Ben Carson, thank you. And coming up, a search for vandals in our nation's capital. More on that when the record continues.
Hey, I'm Carl Higby from Newsmax. Look, I'm unapologetically pro-American, and honestly, this is the one place that lets me call it how it is. I'm not holding back. I'll give it to you straight every single night.
Every day across the globe, big business agendas go unseen by investors. Things that go against your core values and beliefs. It's time to know your investments. Abortion, alternative lifestyles, gender and identity confusion. If you believe in protecting marriage and life, children, innocence, guarding masculinity, restoring families, defending religious liberty, invest with your values. Before investing, carefully consider the fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses of the investment company. This and other important information can be found in the fund's prospectus. To obtain a copy, visit timothyplan.com or call 800-846-7526. Read each prospectus carefully before investing. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Here's Chris Cunahan with the Leaf Filter Gutter Report.
From blizzards to downpours to windstorms or heat waves, no matter where you live, Leaf Filter keeps your gutters clog-free year-round. Schedule your free inspection today. Call 833-LEAF-FILTER or visit leaffilter.com.
Jacuzzi bath remodel can take your outdated, unsafe bathroom from this to this in as little as one day. I'm Art Edmonds, Jacuzzi bath remodel expert here. We have styles and options to fit every budget. Call us and we'll handle everything from start to finish.
Right now, we're waiving installation costs with no interest and no payments for up to a year.
With thousands of happy customers.
I could not be happier.
You can trust Jacuzzi to get the bathroom of your dreams. Act now for this special offer.
Go to jacuzzibathremodel.com or call 800-991-8521.
What if you're sick at home or traveling and can't get medical help or prescriptions? Doctors say a medical emergency kit is the answer. Joining me is Dr. Drew.
Thank you. And yes, these kits put you in charge of your health. They come with physician-prescribed medication to treat multiple common and some serious issues as well.
What are some examples?
Sure. Generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, other essential antibiotics and antivirals that treat flu, pneumonia, strep, ear infections, sinus infections, urinary tract infections, and more.
So it is like urgent care and a pharmacy at home?
Exactly. No waiting, no pharmacy, no copays. You feel better faster and avoid serious complications.
How do you know what medicines to take?
You just match your symptoms to the doctor-written guide or schedule a quick telehealth call.
Sound advice. Order online in minutes at the website below and save $45. Thank you, doctor.
Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code news.
Kevin Sorbo here, and I have an important message to share. The government needs more money, your money. If you owe the IRS back taxes, they can garnish your wages and levy your bank accounts. They can even seize your retirement or take your home. Don't let the IRS target you. Call the professionals at Tax Network USA. Their tax lawyers and enrolled agents are experts in powerful programs that may even help you eliminate your tax debt.
Call for a free consultation or visit tnusa.com.
Don't kibble your dog.
Hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
What's wrong with this?
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means they're ultra-processed. At Dr. Marty, we freeze-dried premium meats, fruits, and vegetables, and it's available at your local pet store.
Wanted for the destruction of government property. United States Park Police are now asking the public to identify the person who allegedly damaged the reflecting pool in D.C. Police released video of an individual sticking their hand in the water and removing a part of the American blue flag rubber liner in the pool. Now, President Trump alleges the liner was cut with a sharp knife or a razor. The pool was painted as part of a multi-million-dollar restoration project for America 250. After the paint job, algae turned the pool a bit green. Then vandals struck. President Trump says at least 6 people have been arrested. And a live look at our nation's capital. Festivities underway for America 250. 1 week and 1 day to go, right? This is the Great American State Fair. There's a Ferris wheel which stands 110 feet tall, also a daily rodeo and live music. And the fair itself showcases all 50 states. Great way to celebrate this great nation of ours. Thanks for watching. Ed Henry, The Big Take is next. Stay with Newsmax on this Friday night.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.